And this one's for the mums and dads.
It's a sham, but the whole process has been a sham.
Looking back on it now, remembering some of the things I saw on it, it was a little bit sort of traumatic.
And they can't tell parents what to do with their children. And what it is actually censoring for everyone.
It's a good idea. I think that it's got the right intention.
I believe that it will only create a generation of young people who will be more technologically literate.
I think there are dangers with social media usage, but there was no indication of how this is going to be implemented to stop the under 16s using it.
I'll find a way, and so will my other friends.
The Australian government is trying to do something crazy. It wants to ban social media for all under 16s. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, X, all of them. With 98% of teens in Australia using social media and up to 4 platforms, there's no doubt that this law would be life-changing for Australian teenagers. This policy has sparked debates worldwide, with thought leaders in the tech space like Elon Musk even chiming in with their thoughts on the new law. And this brings up larger questions about whether this ban is a step too far by the government in controlling the internet access of Australians. But what's led Australia to take such sudden and drastic measures against social media, deeming it inappropriate for the use of children? And will they be successful in being the first country in the world to implement a national ban for children from social media? Hi guys, it's Lottie here, and today we're going to be delving into Australia's proposed ban for under 16s from social media. Okay, so to start with, what exactly is this social media ban? The Australian government is currently trying to introduce a minimum age for access to social media. It's currently 13 and they want to increase it to 16. The proposed legislation is the Online Safety Amendment, the Social Media Minimum Age Bill of 2024. So when I heard about this bill, it instantly caught my interest, as I think I am probably one of the first ages as kind of older Gen Z to actually use social media at school. So I think I started getting social media platforms and accounts on them probably around 2012. So Instagram was in like its really early days. I don't think it even had messaging. Feeds were still in date order, and you literally just saw single images from your friends. Like, this is before Reels, right before video. Like, it was super basic. Snapchat was just coming around, and that was kind of the first app that even used filters, which is crazy to think now. And Facebook was really the one that everyone had. And so I grew up with social media in secondary school. I never had any issues with it personally, but I think it's a whole different ballgame now, knowing how different social media is and how different its use is now by teenagers compared to when I was in their shoes going through school. One of the really big benefits to this bill, which I think is particularly really good, is that it'll primarily be able to protect teenagers better from bullying, seeing harmful content, and also protection from, let's say, adults who might not have the best intentions online. I think one of the reasons that this bill has come about is due to a lot of research recently that has surfaced on how social media is affecting teenagers. Almost 2/3 of 14 to 17-year-old Australians have viewed extremely harmful online content, and I have to be careful with how I phrase these due to YouTube not liking certain terms. But this harmful content involves unaliving, certain substances not being used in the best ways, let's say, particularly illegal substances, as well as violent material. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says, "We know social media is doing harm. We want Australian children to have a childhood, and we want parents to know that the government is in their corner. This is a landmark reform. We know some kids will find workarounds, but we're sending a message to social media companies to clean up their act." Social media has also become a really large issue in terms of bullying. Christian Hull, whose video I watched when I was researching this topic, said something that really resonated with me. He said that social media basically allows you to take this, to quote, the schoolyard home with you. And in essence, you can't leave bullying or any negative stuff happening at school, but it can literally follow you back to your home. And it's this blurring and kind of lack of differentiation of school and home, which I think is one of the really core issues. Some famous cases of how cyberbullying can have really serious and permanent consequences for children is the case of Tilly, who was 15. This is quite a famous case. Her mum has done a lot of campaigning around her story, where she's no longer with us due to cyberbullying and fake inappropriate photos of her being spread online through social media all around her hometown. Another serious case of this is a girl who was as young as 14, Dolly, who also is sadly no longer with us due to cyberbullying. And this resulted in her parents setting up the Dolly's Dream charity, which does a lot of campaigning and awareness building around the issues of cyberbullying and educating children on how to be generally safer online. But it's not just cyberbullying that's the issue with social media. A 2020 report found that 7 out of 10 young people aged between 14 and 17 have seen inappropriate images online in the past year alone, while close to half have received inappropriate messages from someone in the last year. And I think this factor really highlights that children need better protection online, full stop. Research released by the Save the Children charity and Western Sydney University shows that 2/3 of children interact daily with someone online they don't know. And it's so much easier now for adults to take advantage of children online, more through social media, more so than it ever has been before. And, back in the day, particularly when I was younger, you're always taught as a kid not to talk to strangers, ever, yet now it seems almost like it's been normalised, and that's completely gone out the window. So since this bill was introduced in Australia, it sparked a lot of debate, no surprise, due to how controversial it is. When researching for this video, I found that a lot of thoughts on the topic varied, and it seems that most people's opinions are founded on their own personal experiences. A large argument against the bill going into action also comes from human rights organisations. It actually threatens to break some international human rights laws, such as the right to freedom of expression and access to information. Despite its dangers, it can be argued that social media can be used as a platform for young people to share their ideas and opinions, engage in dialogue and participate in social and cultural activities through not necessarily an in-person means, but through an online means. I asked my 2 younger brothers for their thoughts. They are both between the ages of 13 and 15, so if the ban went into action tomorrow, they would both be kicked off social media. And I was really intrigued to hear what children their age actually thought of the ban itself. They were both against it, which makes sense as they're both big users of it, primarily of TikTok for entertainment, but I'm sure they could find other means. I don't think that's the worst bit. I think it mainly is the chatting on Snapchat, which they would miss most. They really enjoy having more access into the personal lives of their friends and being able to communicate in these fun and exciting ways. It can also be a pretty educational tool and used to discuss and share knowledge amongst teenagers, and there definitely is, I'm aware of, a lot of misinformation spread as well as the correct information. So I think teenagers definitely do need to know how to fact check stuff better. The amount of random facts my brothers have come out with, which we've said like, oh, did you get that from TikTok? Because it's 100% not true. But there are generally some really interesting and true, bits of information that they come out with that they have learned. Amnesty International Australia campaigner Nikita White talks about the topic, and she says there's no doubt that the practices of social media platforms are harming young children's rights. But young people also have the right to express themselves online and seek information. Social media offers children and young people benefits such as inclusion, social connection, and a sense of belonging, all of which can also support their mental health, which I think is also really important. In an open letter to the government in October, signed by over 100 academics and 20 civil society organisations, the Australian Child Rights Task Force called the government to instead look at imposing safety standards on social media platforms as an alternative to the ban. By removing children from social media, you do protect them from the harm, but you also disable them to access the good from it. For example, it would limit young people's ability to access much needed information and support, for example, for those in, trying to think how to put this, not very safe home environments, where perhaps they need to be able to reach out or even learn that their circumstances aren't normal and it's not something that they should necessarily be living with. Or also, social media is really beneficial to young people from more marginalised, vulnerable or remote communities such as LGBTQ+ teenagers or First Nations teenagers who might perhaps feel like they can be more themselves online, express themselves better, maybe more so than they can in real life where they might not feel safe enough to. I found this really interesting case of Lucas Lane when researching for this video, who is a 15-year-old entrepreneur who appeared on Shark Tank Australia back when he was 13, which is just so ballsy to do. And he's built an online business selling nail polish to boys through social media and actually managed to get offers from 3 sharks alone because they were so impressed by his work. He said to the BBC when asked for his thoughts on the topic that this ban destroys my friendships and the ability to make people like him seen. Privacy issues are also a huge concern, predominantly because in order to use social media then, if you are over 16, you will have to be age verified by these apps. So in order to keep in social media, let's say Instagram would have to check that I was above 16 and probably age verify every single Australian over the age of 16 who uses social media, which is probably most of them. And of course, this brings up an issue of data and how potentially this could be stored and how these ID checks would be used, having to bring along new technology, and also getting social media companies to comply, which wouldn't necessarily be the easiest thing to do. Interestingly, Australia isn't actually the first country to attempt to deal with the social issues created by social media. The first one in 2011 was that South Korea had a shutdown law which prevented children under 16 from playing internet games between 10:30 at night and 6 a.m. in the morning, basically to make sure they weren't gaming all night. But this rule, which faced a lot of backlash, it was scrapped in the end. And then later the year in 2023, France introduced legislation requiring social media platforms to block access to children under 15 without parental consent. Research indicated that almost half of teens got around this issue though, using VPNs. So it came down to a tech issue, age verification processes not really being effective, and so it was scrapped due to simply not working. And the most recent in September of this year, the state of Utah has been trying to pass a similar law to Australia's law, but it's run into a different issue where a federal judge has actually blocked it due to deeming it unconstitutional. So it seems like the Australian government really feels that there is a need to step in enough that they are introducing this ban. But is it really the correct thing to do? One idea that personally came to mind would be to simply, instead of banning children from these platforms, create safer, more controlled child variants of them, like YouTube Kids. And in fact, Instagram just announced that they are currently working on launching their Instagram Teen accounts, which should come out in early 2025 apparently. With Instagram Teen accounts, anyone who signs up between 13 to 17 will automatically have one of these accounts, and they have new features such as time limitations, which can be set by parents, safety settings, chat visibility for parents, sensitive content controls, and other child protection measures. Okay, so that's all I've got time for today. I hope you found this topic as interesting as I did. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you for this ban? Are you not? What are your personal experiences with social media? Do you have children perhaps who use it? What have been their experiences? And yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and hopefully I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.